My wife cheated on me with a younger gym trainer, and I got my revenge on both of them in the most decisive way possible. Looking back, our relationship was always pretty predictable and routine. Diana and I first crossed paths at a work event, where we instantly connected over shared experiences, life, marriage, and the challenges of blending families. When we tied the knot, everything seemed to fall perfectly into place. We each had kids from previous relationships, so merging our lives took some effort, but we made it work, or at least I thought we did. As time went by, our days became a steady pattern of raising the kids and pursuing our careers. Life wasn't without its ups and downs, but we always made it a point to reconnect over dinner. Even after the kids had grown up and moved out, our lives remained intertwined with shared responsibilities, vacations, and unwavering support for each other through life's challenges. Everything appeared perfectly fine, until that one night when Diana dropped the bombshell. It was just another ordinary evening, just the two of us having dinner together. I'd made stir-fry since she was running late from a school event, which was odd because she was almost never late. We always made it a priority to have dinner together as a way to stay close. Halfway through refilling my coffee, I realized I hadn't fully processed what Diana had just said. She was staring at me, waiting for my reaction. "What?" I asked, feeling confused. "I don't get it, you're what?" "I've been seeing Trevor," she said quickly, her eyes fixed on me. "The new gym teacher at school. Trevor Bakerfield. You've met him." I felt a knot form in my stomach. "Yeah, I know who Trevor is," I responded, my voice uneasy. "So you're seeing him? What does that mean?" Diana let out a sigh before continuing. "We've become friends. I've been having lunch with him, and after school, we've been going out sometimes." "Going out?" I repeated, completely thrown off. "Are you saying you're having an affair?" "Yes," she admitted, her eyes not leaving mine. I stared at her, waiting for her to laugh or take it back, but she didn't. "Yes, what? You're having an affair?" She nodded, her expression serious. "Yes," she confirmed. "Mike, I'm telling you because I love and respect you. I always have." I could barely breathe. "Respect me? Love me?" I choked out, completely stunned. "It's true," she insisted. "You've always been my number one. Marrying you was the best thing that ever happened to me. I love you so much. I just couldn't keep seeing him without being honest with you." I kept staring at her, desperately hoping she'd suddenly say it was some cruel joke. Diana loved me as much as I loved her. There was no way she could really be having an affair. But she didn't back down. She didn't try to take back a single word. I was lost, completely blindsided. "I don't even know what to say, Diana. I'm so confused." "Don't feel bad, Mike," she said softly. "Yes, I've been seeing Trevor, but he's just a friend. I don't love him. It hasn't changed anything between us." My jaw clenched as I struggled to wrap my head around what she was saying. "How can you say you love me?" "I do love you," she insisted. "We have a great marriage, and I'll always cherish that. But I need other male friends too." I shook my head in disbelief. "I've never had an issue with your male friends before." "I know, and I appreciate that," she replied. "Trevor's just a friend, but he's younger. He makes me feel like a teenager again sometimes." She kept talking, but I stopped hearing her. My whole world was falling apart right there in our kitchen. I snapped, my patience finally giving out. "I don't want to hear the details of your affair. Spare me that." Seeing the fury in my eyes, Diana's voice softened. "I'm sorry, honey. I just wanted to be honest. Yes, I'm seeing Trevor, but no one knows. We've been careful." "Oh, and that's supposed to make me feel better?" I shot back, my words dripping with sarcasm. "I know it doesn't," she admitted, her gaze dropping to the floor. I need you to understand, Mike. Trevor could never replace you. He's just a fun distraction. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just couldn't keep hiding it." Her words echoed in my head, making my blood boil even more. "A fun guy? A distraction? Something you won't miss? You selfish, conniving." My voice shook with rage, my face burning hot. "How could you?" Diana didn't try to defend herself. She just sat there, letting me vent. "I guess I deserve that," she muttered, her shoulders slumping. I couldn't take it anymore. I shot up from my chair so fast that it tipped over, clattering loudly against the floor. Without another word, I stormed out of the room. "Mike! Where are you going? Don't leave! Please!" Diana's voice trailed behind me. "I need to think," I shouted back, barely slowing down. "Give me a minute." I charged out the back door, leaving her behind. The cold evening air hit me as I stepped out onto the deck, my chest heaving. I was furious, my mind spinning as I tried to catch my breath. An affair, she's cheating on me. The sheer disrespect made my blood boil. I gripped the railing so hard my knuckles turned white, my body trembling with anger. I'm normally a calm guy. I've always prided myself on keeping my cool. As an accountant, I'm used to staying composed, even when clients get anxious or situations get tense. But this was personal. My wife of over 20 years had just confessed to seeing some younger guy from work. And not just any guy, Trevor Bakerfield. I'd met him at a school event once. Diana introduced him like he was just some casual friend, and I'd been stupid enough to believe her. Now I knew the truth, and my mind raced with images of them together, replaying everything she said. I forced myself to take deep breaths, knowing that storming back inside and yelling wouldn't fix anything. It would only make her defensive, and I needed answers. I needed to understand just how deep this went. After about 10 minutes, my heart rate finally began to slow. I took one last deep breath and walked back inside, ready to face her. Diana was still at the table, nervously fiddling with her coffee cup. When she saw me, her eyes were red and swollen, but I didn't feel an ounce of sympathy. I sat down across from her, raising my hand to stop her from speaking before she even started. "Let's restart this," I said, my voice tense but controlled. "I'm shocked, Diana. I never expected this." "You don't have to be, Mike," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I cut her off again. "Wait. What exactly is your plan here? You expect me to just forgive and forget? You've been seeing someone behind my back, and you think I'm supposed to move on like nothing happened?" Diana shifted uncomfortably in her chair, unable to look me in the eye. "Well, not exactly," she stammered. "I knew you'd be upset, but I didn't want to keep you in the dark anymore." I scoffed, the bitterness heavy in my tone. "Oh, how considerate of you. So, what did that slick guy have to say when you told him you were coming clean to me?" Her face tightened as she hesitated. He thought it was for the best," she finally admitted. "That's what he said?" I challenged, leaning in. "Not exactly," Diana clarified quickly. "Look, Trevor's not a bad guy, Mike. He feels terrible about sneaking around. We both do." I could barely believe what I was hearing. "Really? You both feel terrible?" I repeated, my voice laced with sarcasm. "Yes," she insisted, her eyes pleading with me to understand. "Neither of us wants to ruin our marriages." I sat back, my head spinning. They didn't want to ruin their marriages, yet they'd gone and done this. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. She looked at me with pleading eyes, clearly hoping I'd understand. I was just about to tell her she needed to end the affair when her expression suddenly shifted, her face hardening with determination. "This is difficult," she began, her voice steady. "But now that you know, I want to keep seeing him. Not all the time, just occasionally, and only after school hours." I was floored by her audacity. My jaw dropped, and the only response I could muster was a sarcastic, "Oh, of course." We sat there in tense silence, the air between us heavy with unresolved anger and shock. Finally, she spoke again, her face twisting with guilt. "I'm so sorry, honey. I know this is hard, but he's a good guy. We have fun together, and yes, I do like him. But it doesn't change anything between us." "You've got to be kidding me," I said, my voice dripping with disbelief. "No, really," she insisted. "It hasn't changed anything so far, and it won't in the future. He's been a good friend to me, and honestly, I think he's been good for our marriage too." I felt my blood pressure spike. "Are you out of your mind? Mike, think about it logically," she argued. "Do you remember how tense things were last year? You even called me out for being difficult." "Well, I was. Our marriage was in a rut when I first started seeing him. I let out a bitter laugh. Oh, so now he's a marriage counselor? She ignored my sarcasm. Trevor helped me adjust my attitude. I know you've noticed the change. Yes, we're more than friends, but I don't need to see him often. Just occasionally, when you're busy. I love you, Mike. I want to grow old with you, you know that. I stared at her, struggling to comprehend what she was asking of me. So, you're not ending the affair? You actually want me to accept this? It will end, eventually, she said, her voice wavering. He's younger, and we have different interests. Our feelings will fade over time, just not right now. You're crazy, I said, unable to hide my disbelief. Please, Mike, she pleaded. Nothing will change between us. I'm still the same loving wife I've always been. We'll continue our relationship just like before. You haven't noticed anything different, have you? I wanted to argue, but I hated that she was right. The truth was, I hadn't noticed a thing. If anything, our relationship had seemed better recently, especially in the bedroom. When Diana and I first started dating, we were incredibly passionate, but as the kids grew older, things naturally slowed down. Even after they went off to college, we never fully went back to that earlier spark. I didn't see it as an issue. I figured most couples our age weren't having wild, passionate nights every day of the week. But now, looking back, I realized something. Things had improved recently. A lot. We'd been more affectionate, and our sex life was more active than it had been in years. I hated admitting it, but she was right. I hadn't suspected a thing. She seemed to read my mind. See? You didn't notice any difference, did you? She pressed, her voice almost triumphant. Even while I was seeing Trevor, I was here for you. We've had an amazing sex life for our age, and I love it just as much as you do. Trevor is just a small part of my life, nothing more. I felt a knot form in my stomach. We've had a stable 20-year marriage, and you want to just continue that? I asked, my voice full of disbelief. Of course, she said earnestly. I love you, Mike. I stared at her, my mind spinning. How could she say that with a straight face? How could she expect me to stay married to a cheating woman who wanted to have her cake and eat it too? I shot back, my anger boiling over. Her face hardened. I'm not a strumpet, she snapped. This is the first time I've ever cheated, and I've never been with a man I didn't have feelings for. So, you have feelings for him? I demanded, my voice dripping with outrage. How do I know you're not just waiting to replace me with him? It's not like that, Mike, she argued, her voice firm. You're my husband, and I love you. I'm never going to leave you. I need some time with Trevor. Not constantly, and not forever. Just until this urge is out of my system. It won't change anything between us, just like it hasn't for the past few months. I sat there in stunned silence, my mind racing with images of what she'd been doing with him. Meanwhile, she kept talking, desperately trying to justify her actions. It's actually better for us in the long run, Mike. I've been more relaxed, more uninhibited in the bedroom. You've noticed that, right? I haven't turned you down once, and I've let you do things you've wanted for years. Since being with Trevor, I've been able to fully express myself, no more hang-ups. You must have felt the difference. She was right, and it made me even angrier. Our sex life had always been decent, nothing wild, but definitely satisfying. Diana was always generous in bed, and we both enjoyed ourselves. But over the past few months, her passion had skyrocketed. I thought it was because the kids moved out or maybe some hormonal change as she got older. Now I realized the truth. It was her affair with that young guy from school that was driving this change. It was devastating. I'd always considered myself lucky to have her. Diana was an attractive, sexy woman who was already a divorcee with 2 kids when we met. She was 4 years older, but that didn't matter to me. I fell for her instantly, and we just clicked. Marrying her and raising her children as my own felt right. Her first husband was a deadbeat who walked out on them, so I became the only father figure her kids ever knew. After 20 years of what I thought was a happy marriage, she drops this bombshell on me. Say something, Mike, she urged, watching me closely. I know you're hurt, but I don't want you to feel this way. Let me make it easier for you. You're still my number one. She stood up, a sly smile crossing her face, and walked toward me with that familiar seductive sway. I'm here for you, baby. Just tell me what you need. Her voice was soft, inviting. She tried to sit on my lap, but I pushed her away, my body tensing up in disgust. Her eyes widened in hurt, but she didn't say anything. I shot up from my chair and stormed out of the room. Wait. She started, but I was already out the door and halfway to my car. I needed to get out of there before I did something I'd regret. As I drove aimlessly through the neighborhood, my mind reeled from everything she'd said. I considered heading to a bar just to drown out my anger and confusion. Eventually, I found a nearby dive bar, parked, and ordered a beer, hoping it would help me clear my head. After a while, I drove back home, my emotions slightly more in check, but my resolve was stronger than ever. I had a plan. When I walked in, Diana was on her cell phone. She looked up, startled, and quickly whispered, I have to go. He's back. Bye. Her face was tense, and I knew instantly who she'd been talking to. It stung like a knife to the gut, but I forced myself to stay calm. I needed to keep my emotions in check and follow the bartender's advice. Get all the information tonight before making any decisions. I sat back down at the kitchen table, the cold coffee cup still sitting where I'd left it. Diana's expression turned serious as she met my eyes. Mike, she started, but I cut her off, my voice cold. Hold on. I need to understand how this all started. Maybe it'll help me process this, somehow. So, how long, Diana? How long have you been breaking our vows? She let out a long sigh. Not long. We've been friends for a while, but it only turned physical a few months ago. She hesitated, then continued, her voice soft, almost relieved. She explained how Trevor made her feel special, how he helped her explore her sexuality in ways she never had before. It was like she was confessing to a therapist, finally letting out all the secrets that had been weighing her down. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So, what now? I demanded, my voice shaking with anger. You've been lying and cheating for months. You've been with a guy barely older than our kids, and I was completely in the dark. Do you expect me to applaud your secrecy? No, Mike, she said, reaching for my hand. I tensed but didn't pull away. I'm ashamed for deceiving you. I hated lying, but we were careful. I never wanted you to find out. Her voice cracked. Trevor never pressured me. He was okay with seeing me occasionally and didn't want to ruin our marriage. That clearly changed. I shot back, bitterness dripping from every word. Diana squeezed my hand, her eyes pleading. No matter what, I love you. Trevor's a good guy, but he could never replace you. I told him from the start we'd never be more than friends with benefits, and he agreed. We were discreet, even had lunch with other coworkers to avoid suspicion. No one ever knew. I'm sure you were a clever cheater. I snapped, my voice cold and detached. She gave me a sad nod. On the outside, I was the faithful wife with a great job and good friends. But inside, I was lying. I always saw myself as an honest person, but this affair made me hate myself. Our marriage is precious to me, and Trevor was just temporary. My feelings for him don't compare to what I feel for you. I started to lose my sense of self because of the deceit. I leaned back, rubbing my temples, trying to process her twisted logic. The solution's simple, Diana. Stop cheating. Yes, but I'm not sure I can right now, she admitted, her voice trembling. I'd like to believe I could just end it with Trevor and everything would go back to normal, but I doubt it. Why? I asked, my frustration boiling over. We've built a great life, raised 2 kids, and now we finally have time to enjoy each other. If you love me like you say, giving him up shouldn't be a problem. She exhaled sharply, her shoulders sagging. It might have been easy to stop at first, but now, I'm not sure. Of course I love you, Mike, but these past few months have shown me another side of life. I've learned more about myself, about my needs. I don't know if I can just go back to how things were, even if I wanted to. I've tried to be the same loving wife, but being with Trevor has made me see other possibilities. I yanked my hand away, my body rigid with anger. Other possibilities? I spat out. You can't stop screwing him, is that it? I was good enough to marry and raise your kids. But now some young guy shows up and suddenly I'm not good enough anymore? That's not it at all, she said quickly, her eyes wide with panic. You've always been the best husband and father I could have asked for. But after so many years of marriage, I've changed, we both have. It's just natural. It doesn't mean we're bad people, people evolve. I glared at her, my mind racing with anger and hurt. I couldn't even find the words to respond. She continued, her voice soft and trembling. Mike, I don't want to hurt you. That's the last thing I want. I never planned for any of this to happen. But now that it has, I don't know how to just turn off my feelings. I'm trying to be honest with you because you deserve that. I know it's unfair, but I can't lie to you anymore. I stood up, my body tense and rigid. You should have been honest before you slept with him, I growled. You should have come to me and told me how you were feeling instead of sneaking around like a coward. She flinched, her face crumpling as she fought back tears. I know, you're right. I was a coward. I didn't want to face the possibility of losing you. I thought I could keep both worlds separate, but I was wrong. And now I've hurt you, the one person I never wanted to hurt. I turned away, unable to look at her anymore. I need space, I muttered, my voice hollow. I need to think about all of this, about what the hell I'm supposed to do now. Without waiting for a response, I walked out of the room, my head spinning, my heart shattered. I know it might not seem like it, but it's true, we're going to stay together, and nothing between us will change. I'll make sure of that. Her voice was calm, confident, as if she were discussing dinner plans, not confessing to an affair. I love our life, our marriage, our kids, but I also enjoy this friendship with Trevor. He makes me feel things I haven't felt in years. I hope you can understand and love me enough to let me have this. I stared at her, my jaw clenched, my fists trembling. You, witch, I muttered under my breath. If she heard me, she didn't react. It's not a bad thing, Mike. I'm always here for you. I just want things to stay as they are a little longer, not forever, just until I'm done with this. Then I'll end it with Trevor and be yours completely again. I'm being honest because I don't want any more secrets. If you let me do this, I promise I'll make it up to you. I'll always be a good wife, and no one will ever know. Just give me this, and I'll reward you for the rest of our lives. This conversation was spiraling out of control. Just a few hours ago, I was feeling great about my marriage. Now, in a matter of minutes, I'd gone from a happy husband to a miserable, betrayed fool. My wife had a lover, someone younger, more exciting. How long had she been laughing at me behind my back? It took me a while to gather myself. I thought I could reason with her, make her see how wrong this was, make her end the affair. But it was clear now, she had no intention of stopping. She just wanted my permission to keep seeing him. She was out of her mind. This is classic cheater's nonsense. I spat, my voice shaking with fury. You've been lying for months, and you were so good at it that I never suspected a thing. Now you admit to all the lies, all the cheating, and you're trying to convince me that nothing will change? That I should just let you keep seeing him? How am I supposed to trust you again? You've lied not just to me but to our kids, our friends, everyone. What's stopping you from changing your mind again, maybe about Trevor, or some other guy in the future? Diana sighed in frustration, her shoulders slumping. She knew I was right. Her eyes filled with tears, and she looked like she wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. Finally she spoke, her voice weak. I'd never do that, and you know it. You've got some nerve, I said bitterly, shaking my head. Acting so entitled, throwing your affair in my face. Why shouldn't I just leave you? I don't want a cheating wife. I should divorce you and be done with it. I expected my words to hurt her, to make her realize what she was risking. But instead, Diana's expression softened. Her eyes were full of pity, and her voice took on a new edge, firm, almost calculating. I know this is hard right now, but divorce? That wouldn't be in your best interests, Mike. My stomach twisted. Why not? At least I'd have my pride. She gave me a pitying look that made my blood boil. A divorce would hurt both of us, Mike. At least I wouldn't have to deal with your affair. I shot back. That's true, she admitted calmly. But I don't think you'd be happy with a divorce. Of course, either of us would. She locked eyes with me, her gaze unwavering. We live in a no-fault state. I'd get half of everything, the house, savings, retirement. And because you adopted Haley and Tyler, you'd have to help with their college costs. Plus, there's alimony. Since I don't earn much as a teacher, you'd be expected to support me. It could be a lot. I felt my face go pale. Of course. She and her lover must have thought this through. So, you take me to the cleaners, I said flatly. She shook her head, her voice softening. I don't want to. I want to keep living and loving you like before. But if you divorce me, you'll owe a lot, and I'd still be free to see Trevor. It would be better for us to stay married. You'd have me as your loving wife, and we could keep having great sex. No one would ever have to know. Her words hung in the air, heavy and cruel. I felt sick. She wasn't just asking for forgiveness, she was giving me an ultimatum. Accept her affair, or lose everything. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. The woman I loved was gone. All that was left was someone cold and calculating, willing to manipulate me to keep her comfortable life. My voice was hollow when I finally spoke. You've thought of everything, haven't you? Diana didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence was all the confirmation I needed. I'll always keep you as my number one, she promised, her voice gentle, almost pleading. Then, in a sympathetic tone, she added, I'll always be thankful for your open-mindedness about this, and I'll give you whatever you want. I just want some time with Trevor, not much, just a little. The rest of the time, I'll focus on making you happy. I was happy before you dumped this on me. I shot back bitterly. Now I know I'm just a fool, putting up with my unfaithful wife and that idiot you work with. It's not like that, Mike. I turned away, ready to walk out of the room. Her voice followed me, laced with desperation. Wait. Don't leave, honey. We need to talk about this more. Please. There's nothing to discuss, Diana. You've made your ultimatum. Now I have to decide if I can accept it. There's nothing to worry about, she cried, sounding panicked. Nothing between us will change, I promise. I don't want you to think about anything except how much I love you, for giving me this freedom. I'll do anything to make you happy. Then end the affair. Right now. She sighed in frustration, her shoulders slumping. Her eyes dropped to the floor as she whispered, I can't do that, just yet, honey. I can't stop right now. I felt my heart harden, the last sliver of hope dying. Then there's nothing more to talk about. This conversation is over. I've heard enough. You've told me how you feel, and nothing I say will change your mind. At the same time, I'll never believe another word you say. I'm done trying to reason with a liar and a cheat. I stormed out and went to the den, my body moving on autopilot. I grabbed the remote and turned on the TV, not caring what was on. I just needed noise, something to drown out the chaos in my head. I thought about leaving, going to a hotel without a word. But that felt like letting her win, like giving her the power to drive me out of my own house. I was so angry. I wanted to hurt her the way she'd hurt me. But storming out or getting drunk wasn't my style. Maybe I was too rational, too boring to do something reckless. Or maybe I was just too tired. I felt numb, exhausted. It was like a nightmare, one I couldn't wake up from. I stared blankly at the TV for another hour. A game was on, but I couldn't have told you the score or even who was playing. At some point, I heard her leave the kitchen. The sliding glass door opened and closed, probably stepping onto the deck to call her boyfriend. I could picture her giving him an update, whispering so I wouldn't hear. After a while, she came back inside and walked into the den. I was in the recliner, deliberately keeping my distance. She hovered nearby, hesitating. Are you okay, Mike? She asked softly, her voice sickeningly sweet. I know this is a lot to take in, honey, and I want to help you. I glanced over and caught her looking at me with a strange smile, like she was trying to comfort me, or manipulate me. Do you want to talk more? Or do you want to go to bed? Her voice dropped to a seductive purr. You know I'll do anything to make you feel better. I really want to. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Was she really offering me sex to ease my pain? Pity sex for her poor, heartbroken husband. I bet it was her boyfriend's idea, Sloppy seconds for the clueless fool. How cliché. The thought made my stomach turn. Disgusted, I turned off the TV and went upstairs without a word. I was so furious I almost slept in the guest room. But then I thought, why should I be the one to give up my bed? She was the one who cheated. If anyone should leave, it was her. I got undressed quickly and slid under the covers, seething with anger. A few minutes later, Diana came in. She saw that I was already in bed, my back to her. She went to the bathroom, changing into a nightgown I always loved, thin, silky, designed to get my attention. I heard the light switch click, plunging the room into darkness. The mattress shifted as she slipped into bed, inching closer. Even now, she was trying to seduce me. My stomach churned. She smelled like her expensive perfume, the scent I used to love, the same perfume she probably wore for him. She reached out, her fingers grazing my back, her voice soft and inviting. I'm here for you, baby. Whatever you need. Her touch made my skin crawl. Knowing she'd been with him, holding him, kissing him, God knows what else, made me feel sick. I stayed still, rigid, refusing to respond. Her fingers lingered for a moment before she pulled away, defeated. She turned over with a sigh, giving up on her pitiful attempt at comfort. I stared into the darkness, my mind replaying her words over and over. I was trapped. If I stayed, I'd have to share my wife with another man. But if I left, I'd lose everything, my home, my savings, my family. It felt like a sick joke, a cruel twist of fate. I had loved her, trusted her, built a life with her. And now she wanted to have her cake and eat it too. To keep me as her faithful husband while she explored her feelings. With a boy half my age. I felt my chest tighten, a dull ache spreading through me. I had never felt so humiliated, so powerless. She had turned my life upside down, and was now lying next to me as if nothing had changed. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I could ever forgive her, and if I even wanted to. I had no intention of being physical with her. I turned onto my side, facing away, hoping she'd get the hint. But she moved closer, trying to spoon me, her arms snaking around my chest, attempting to pull me toward her. I shoved her hand away. "Wanna fool around, honey?" she whispered softly. Suddenly, a revolting image flashed through my mind. I pictured my slender 51-year-old wife in Trevor's bed, lying on her back, passionately entangled with him. I imagined her gripping him, smiling as he took what was once mine. My stomach turned. Without looking at her, I grabbed her hand, yanked it off me, and muttered, "Never again." "But honey, I know you're upset." "I just wanted to." I rolled over sharply, glaring at her. She jerked back, clearly startled by the fury in my eyes. Even in the dark, I knew she could see the resentment etched on my face. "Of course I'm upset, damn it," I snapped. "I just found out I've been a fool for months. If you're so desperate for sex, go call Trevor. I'm sure your young stud can handle your needs." She looked stunned. I don't think she expected me to reject her so harshly. Her eyes widened, hurt and confusion flickering across her face. I held her gaze for a second longer before turning back toward the wall, my body rigid with anger. She didn't say another word. She didn't touch me again. I lay there, fuming, my mind swirling with images I didn't want but couldn't shake. Sleep was impossible, and judging by her restless movements, she didn't get much rest either. The next morning, I woke up before the alarm, my eyes gritty from lack of sleep. The bitterness from the night before was still there, clinging to me like a shadow. Diana was in bed, lying stiffly on her side, clearly awake but not saying a word. I took a quick shower, moving on autopilot. When I came out, she was gone, probably downstairs. She had to be at school an hour earlier than I needed to be at work. Normally, I was up before her, sometimes even making breakfast. Not today. Not anymore. Not after finding out she was screwing that idiot. I got dressed and cleaned up faster than usual. I was desperate to get out of the house, to escape the stench of betrayal that seemed to hang in the air. As I headed downstairs, I saw her in the kitchen, bustling around like it was any other morning. "Good morning, Mike," she called out, her voice annoyingly cheerful. "I made bacon and eggs for you. There's toast too." Want some coffee, dear? I didn't respond. I couldn't even look at her. To hell with her and her boyfriend. Without saying a word, I walked straight out of the house. Mike, wait! Please! She called out, her voice cracking with panic. But I didn't stop. I slammed the door behind me, got in my car, and sped down the street, not caring how fast I was going. At work, I tried to focus, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get her and that young idiot out of my head. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them together, laughing, touching, kissing. My stomach churned, and my blood boiled. I was a mess, unable to concentrate all day. Diana called me several times. I let every call go to voicemail, not bothering to listen to her pleading messages. I deleted them without a second thought. She sent me cute, apologetic texts too, acting as if a few sweet words could erase what she'd done. I skimmed them briefly before deleting those as well. But even with all her attempts to reach me, I couldn't stop thinking about her. About them. About what she'd done behind my back, lying to my face while sneaking around with someone young enough to be her son. It was humiliating, infuriating, and it hurt more than I wanted to admit. I made several careless mistakes at work, my head too clouded with anger and betrayal to focus. After botching a few tasks, I decided to take the afternoon off. I needed answers, so I called a lawyer for a consultation. He was an older guy, no nonsense, and saw me right away. Everything Diana told me about divorce turned out to be true. I'd be screwed emotionally and financially. We lived in a no-fault state, so she'd walk away with half of everything: house, savings, retirement. I'd be stuck paying alimony since she didn't earn much as a teacher. And because I adopted Haley and Tyler, I'd be on the hook for their college costs too. Meanwhile, she'd be free to keep seeing her young stud, probably living comfortably off my money. And me? I'd be left financially strapped, heartbroken, and likely alone in some dingy one-bedroom apartment. I never cheated. I didn't have anyone to ease the heartache. No one to help me move on. It was a bleak future. Staying with her wasn't much better. Sure, I'd still get sex, she emphasized that more than once, but it would be pity sex at best. And every time I touched her, I'd be haunted by the thought of him being there before me. Sloppy seconds. I knew this younger guy was satisfying her in ways I couldn't. At 47, there was no way I could compete in bed with a good-looking, athletic 30-year-old, or however old he was. If I stayed and tolerated her affair, the courts would see it as me accepting her cheating. I wouldn't even be able to claim infidelity if we divorced later. And trying to have my own affair too. Even the score was a joke. Plenty of guys were lining up to be with her, even younger ones. Trevor was proof of that. At 51, Diana still looked incredible. Short dark hair, a trim body, and a personality that lit up a room. She turned heads wherever she went. Me? I was just an average-looking, middle-aged guy with a receding hairline and a bit of extra weight. Sure, I had a good job, and people always said I looked good for my age. But how many women were actually interested in a married man in his late 40s? Probably not many. The contrast in our dating prospects was depressing. She was still attractive and desirable. I was not. After a frustrating day, I went to a bar for dinner. I stayed as late as I could, nursing a couple of beers, but I'd never been into the bar scene. Sitting there alone was dull, surrounded by other sad, lonely guys nursing their own miseries. I didn't belong there. I wanted to be at home with my wife, drinking a beer and relaxing by the TV, not drowning my sorrows in some dingy bar. When I finally got home, the house was dark. Diana was already in bed. It wasn't even late, but I guess she gave up on waiting for me. Not that I cared. I slept like crap again, tossing and turning all night, my mind replaying our conversation over and over. I woke up before dawn, tired and bitter. I didn't want to be around her, so I left the house early and went to Denny's for breakfast. After eating, I just drove around for a while, wandering aimlessly, trying to clear my head. I ended up window shopping, killing time until I had to go back home. When I finally did, I wondered if my cheating wife would be there or off with that young idiot. To my surprise, she was home. She must have heard my car pull up because she opened the door, a smile plastered on her face like nothing was wrong. "Hey, honey!" she chirped, moving to kiss me. I turned my head, and her lips landed awkwardly on my cheek. She looked hurt and confused when I pulled away and walked past her without a word. I went straight to the den, needing space to cool off. After some time alone, I wandered out to the kitchen for a beer. I saw her standing at the counter, pretending to be busy, her eyes following me as I walked by. I didn't acknowledge her. I just grabbed my beer and went to the living room to watch TV, hoping she'd leave me alone. A few minutes later, she joined me, a glass of wine in her hand. She stood by the doorway, hesitating before asking, "Mind if I sit with you?" Her voice was sweet, almost shy, like she was testing the waters. I grunted, not looking away from the TV. She took it as permission and settled on the couch beside me. I noticed she had changed her clothes. She was wearing a tight tank top that showed off her toned arms and shoulders and a pair of skimpy shorts that barely covered her thighs. She was trying to get my attention. She knew exactly what she was doing. It made my blood boil. Was this for me? Or was she just dressing like that out of habit because of him? I caught a whiff of her spicy perfume as she walked in. I was already on the couch, so I slid over to make room, but instead of taking the open space, she deliberately sat right next to me. As the show went on, she got more touchy-feely. The wine was definitely hitting her. She seemed a little tipsy, maybe even turned on, but she wasn't actually drunk. When she leaned in closer, her lips just inches from my neck, I chose that moment to break the mood. "I need to hit the bathroom, Diana," I said, gently pushing her away as I stood up and left the room. As I walked off, I caught a glimpse of her face, confused. I almost never rejected her advances, and she knew it. After finishing up in the bathroom, I didn't go back to the living room. Instead, I headed straight to the kitchen. "You coming back? The show's good," she called out. "Not right now," I replied, making no effort to move. I deliberately lingered in the kitchen, giving it enough time for the moment to pass. Once I figured the coast was clear, I grabbed another beer and went straight to the den, shutting the door behind me. Just as I expected, a few minutes later, Diana followed. "What are you up to?" she asked with a playful smile. "Just catching up on some work." "You don't want to watch the show?" "Better not." "Oh, okay." She hesitated in the doorway while I focused on my computer screen, but I could feel her frustration. After such a nice dinner, she probably thought we were on the path to fixing things. A moment later, I felt her hands on my shoulders. "What are you looking at now?" she asked, glancing at my screen like she was actually interested. I had a financial spreadsheet open from an account I was working on, complicated stuff she wouldn't understand. "Didn't finish this on Friday," I explained. "Figured you wouldn't mind if I skipped the show." "Oh, of course not." She started rubbing my neck, and I shivered. Diana knew I liked that, she always did. She made sure the massage was as suggestive as possible, leaning down and planting a soft kiss on my head. I could smell the alcohol on her breath. But I ignored her. It took her another 10 minutes to finally accept that I wasn't playing along. With an exasperated sigh, she gave up and walked out. "Can you shut the door, please?" I called after her. "Okay," she muttered, pulling it closed. I let out a quiet sigh of relief. Even after all these years, Diana still knew exactly how to get a reaction out of me. And damn it, it was working. But I wasn't about to let her have me while she had someone else. I spent the next 3 hours finishing my work. When I finally made my way upstairs, she was already asleep, wearing a skimpy nightgown with matching underwear. She had clearly planned on seducing me, but the wine must have knocked her out before she got the chance. Sunday morning, I woke up before her and spent the entire day avoiding her, just like I had the day before. On Monday morning, Diana's car wouldn't start, so I had no choice but to drive her to school. Before getting out, she asked if I could pick her up later. Throughout the day, I kept getting calls from her school. I figured she was just letting me know she had arranged a ride home, probably with her boyfriend. Ignoring the calls, I decided to take control of the situation. I left work early and made sure to get to her school before her last class even ended. I stood outside, watching as students trickled out of the room. When I finally stepped inside, Diana looked up and saw me. She didn't seem particularly thrilled. "Hey, honey. Ready to go home?" I asked, keeping my tone light and cheerful. She shot me a sharp look. I've been calling you all day, Mike. Why didn't you answer? Sorry, I was busy, I replied with a shrug, acting like it was no big deal. I wanted to tell you I already arranged a ride home. Oh, really? Well, no matter, I'm here now, so, let's go. I dismissed her irritation and turned toward the door. Right then, a tall, athletic guy with dark hair strolled confidently into the room, heading straight for Diana like he expected her to greet him. The moment I saw him, I knew exactly who he was: Trevor. Her boyfriend. I'd seen him before but never really paid much attention. Up close, he looked even younger than I remembered, more like a cocky frat boy than a professional teacher. Dressed in sneakers, shorts, and a fitted t-shirt that showed off his toned arms and legs, he was exactly the type Diana would fall for. Arrogant. Overconfident. But I could see why she was attracted to him. Diana's eyes widened as soon as she saw him, while Trevor's expression shifted to confusion. Oh, Trevor, she stammered, clearly caught off guard. I didn't let her finish. She already has a ride home, I said smoothly, keeping my cool. Trevor blinked, taking a second to process my presence. Then, when it finally clicked, he smirked, like he found the whole situation amusing. His eyes flickered between Diana and me before he stepped forward, extending a hand. Oh, hi. I'm Trevor Bakerfield. I ignored the gesture and replied coolly. Yeah, I know who you are. Diana, clearly nervous, tried to ease the tension. Trevor, this is Mike, my husband. You've met him before. Recognition finally dawned on his face. Oh, right. Mike Wilson. I remember. Nice to see you again. I'm sure it is, I said coldly. We met at parents' night a few months ago, he continued. Diana speaks highly of you. Not highly enough, I guess, I muttered, shooting Diana a sideways glance. She looked like she was holding her breath. Diana, let's go, I said, wrinkling my nose like something in the room smelled off. As Diana hurried to gather her things, Trevor turned his attention back to me. Excuse me for a minute, Mr. Wilson. Can I call you Mike? I scowled and ignored the question. What do you want? Just a minute of your time, he said, his voice smooth and diplomatic. I know there's some tension between us, I get it. But it doesn't have to be this way. Diana has told you about our friendship, so I just want you to know I don't have any hard feelings toward you. I respect the strong, loving relationship you have with your wife, Trevor said. Is that why you're screwing her? I shot back without hesitation. Across the room, I heard Diana gasp, completely stunned by my bluntness. Trevor, on the other hand, just nodded sympathetically, as if he understood my frustration. Yes, it's true, he admitted smoothly. Diana and I are close friends, and we've expressed that friendship in a more intimate way. But that doesn't mean we don't respect you or the role you play in her life. Neither of us ever wanted to hurt your marriage or your family. This was never about replacing you. We're just friends, nothing more. She's always told me she loves you, and only you. I stared at him, trying to decide if he was delusional, or just a world-class *T artist. Either way, I wasn't buying it. Trevor kept smiling, his voice calm and sincere. I really hope you don't resent my friendship with Diana. She's had such a positive influence on everyone around her, including me. And when things between us escalated, we both realized we should have come to you first. That was my mistake. She acted appropriately. I'm the one who took things further than I should have. So you admit you seduced her? I said bitterly. In a way, yes, he replied with a sigh. She's an incredible woman, and I got a little infatuated. I let my lack of self-control get the best of me, and I acted unprofessionally. But believe me, I never wanted to hurt you. In fact, I appreciate you allowing her to work here so she can continue being a role model for the students. Her presence has meant a lot to me, and I'll always value our friendship. What an absolute load of crap. I couldn't even find the words to respond. I glanced over at Diana, hoping to see some trace of guilt, but instead, she was watching Trevor with rapt attention. Her eyes sparkled, completely taken in by his smooth, respectful tone, like he was some kind of noble gentleman instead of the guy sleeping with another man's wife. So if I asked you to stop sleeping with her, what would you say? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Trevor shrugged, completely unfazed. I understand your concerns. If I were in your position, I'd probably feel the same way. But as for ending our friendship? I'd leave that up to her. Diana is a strong, independent woman. If she doesn't want to see me anymore, I'll respect that. But if she does, well, I don't know how I could say no to her. As much as I wanted to hate this guy, I couldn't. Not completely. I resented him, despised him, but I also couldn't deny that at least he was being honest. And that was the worst part, because no matter how reasonable he sounded, the bottom line was clear: unless I physically removed him from the picture, he was going to keep sleeping with my wife whether I liked it or not. I tore my gaze away from him, only to catch Diana and Trevor exchanging a look, one that made my stomach turn. She gazed at him with pure admiration, her expression soft and adoring, like a teenager with a crush. It was sickening. She was old enough to be his mother, but around him, she acted like some smitten schoolgirl. Whatever feelings she once had for me were long gone, drowned out by her obsession with this young, charming asshole. His slick words had drained every last ounce of fight from me. Sure, I could have swung at him, maybe even landed a couple of solid hits, but let's be real, the guy was in great shape. He'd probably wipe the floor with me, and that would only make me feel even more pathetic than I already did. Feeling like a complete fool, I shoved past him and walked straight out the door. As I left, I caught the sound of Diana and Trevor exchanging hushed words. A moment later, I heard the sharp click of her heels as she hurried after me. "Mike, wait up, honey!" she called. I ignored her and made a beeline for my car. I needed to get as far away from that place as possible. The whole conversation had drained me, left me feeling small, humiliated. It was painfully obvious how much Diana cared for him. There was no way I could compete with a young, charming guy like Trevor. I hated him for seducing my gullible wife, but the truth was, I resented her even more. The drive home was quiet. Diana tried to fill the silence with a few kind words, but for the most part, she just stared out the window, probably replaying the whole scene in her head. If anything, I figured she was even more impressed with Trevor now. I, on the other hand, had come off as weak, lost, hesitant, while he stood there spewing nonsense about his so-called respect for me and admiration for my wife. What a joke. When we got home, I went straight upstairs to the bedroom, feeling more like a worn-out old man than a 47-year-old. Diana could see I was miserable and did her best to cheer me up, but it was useless. At one point, she even offered to give me a back rub, maybe more, to help me sleep. I wasn't interested. Not in the slightest. She gave me a sad smile, then changed into her nightgown and climbed into bed beside me. The next night, I packed up my clothes and moved into the guest room. Diana didn't take it well. She argued with me, pleaded for me to stay. "You're my husband. You belong by my side," she insisted. She even promised me anything I wanted, physically, if I'd just stay with her at night. I didn't take the bait. And so, I started sleeping in the small, lonely guest bed. Diana went to bed in tears. The rest of the week passed in a fog. We went through the motions, waking up, going to work, eating dinner, heading to separate rooms at night. We never spoke about the affair, never made weekend plans. Friday and Saturday nights were the same. We sat silently in front of the TV, then went to bed alone. I had no idea if she was still seeing Trevor. She never said a word about him, but I wasn't stupid. Even when I came home on time, she had plenty of chances to meet him after school. He lived nearby, so sneaking off together wouldn't be hard. Diana thought she was being discreet, but after seeing the way she looked at him in that classroom, I knew better. I had no doubt Trevor was getting more from Diana than I ever did. She knew I was down and tried to stay on good terms with me, often offering to help out with things. In the evenings, she'd sometimes wear revealing outfits and throw me suggestive glances, hoping I'd let things go and give our relationship another shot. We kept our conversations light, sticking to casual topics, but the tension between us was impossible to ignore. A couple of days after our argument, I came home completely drained. Diana's car was in the driveway, but there was another vehicle I didn't recognize. When I stepped inside, I found her out on the back deck with another woman, both lounging in their swimsuits, sipping wine. Diana stood up to greet me. "Hey, Mike," she said brightly, moving in for a kiss. I turned my cheek, and she barely reacted. By now, she was used to it. "Tough day?" she asked in a sweet tone. "Not really," I muttered, not in the mood to talk. "Come out back and meet my friend, Kristen," she said, and though I wasn't eager, I went along with it. Diana introduced us. Kristen was on the shorter side, with blonde hair, a curvy figure, and an easygoing demeanor. We made small talk for a while, eventually ordering takeout and eating in the kitchen. The women kept drinking, getting more giggly as the night went on. When I said I was heading to bed, Kristen teased. "Already? It's not even 11. Diana laughed. "He gets tired early now." They both chuckled, but I wasn't amused. That night, I had a vivid dream, so intense it felt real. But when I woke up, I was stunned to realize the sensation hadn't stopped. I looked down to see Kristen performing oral sex on me. My stomach dropped. I bolted upright, pushing her away. Diana was lying next to me, smiling. "What the hell is going on?" I yelled. "We just wanted to make you feel good," Diana murmured. Kristen chimed in. "Come on, let me finish, you'll love it." "Please, Mike," Diana whispered. "I just want you to be happy." "Screw you," I snapped, fury boiling inside me. They had crossed a line, violated my trust while I was asleep. I stormed to the kitchen, splashed cold water on my face, trying to steady myself. When I turned around, they were both standing in the doorway, now wrapped in robes. "What the hell were you thinking?" I demanded. Diana spoke first. "We just wanted to help you." "Yeah," Kristen added. "Diana told me what you've been going through. I thought I could help." "I don't need any damn help," I shot back. Everything was fine until Diana started cheating on me. She swore nothing would change, but everything has. And I'm sick of it. Kristen's expression softened. "I know, and I don't think she should have done that. But it was her choice." "Yeah? And look where that got us," I snapped. "I know she doesn't want to hurt you," Kristen said gently. "Easy for you to say," I scoffed. "Do you have any idea what it's like to know your own wife isn't satisfied with you? That she needs some younger guy to make her happy?" Diana's patience finally cracked. "All right, enough," she snapped. "I get it, we messed up. But there's no need to insult us." "Oh, so I'm the crazy one now?" I shot back. "I'm out of here." For a moment, I considered getting a hotel room, but then I thought, why the hell should I be the one to leave? This was my house too. Instead, I locked myself in the guest room, shoving a dresser against the door. If they tried sneaking in again, I'd be ready. By the next day, I knew I couldn't take it anymore. During lunch, I went straight to my lawyer and told him to move forward with the divorce. After explaining how my wife and her friend had ambushed me in my sleep, he suggested filing a restraining order, to get Diana out of the house and keep her away from me. I didn't even hesitate. I agreed on the spot. 2 days later, Diana got served. Right in the middle of lunch at school. The process server walked straight into the teacher's break room and handed her the papers in front of her coworkers. Then, he served Trevor, for alienation of affection. That idiot deserved it. And just to make things even more interesting, the process server made a final stop at the principal's office, slapping him with legal papers for allowing Diana and Trevor's affair to go down on school property, during school hours. We didn't have solid proof of that charge yet, but we planned to gather witnesses, especially about that so-called exercise class. I was certain some of the other teachers had picked up on what was happening. Time would tell. Either way, they were cheating, and I was the one paying for it. Right after lunch, my phone rang. "Damn you, Mike!" Diana's voice exploded through the receiver. "You fool! I told you what would happen if we got divorced. It can't be worse than living with a cheater." I shot back. "I'm done with you and your loser boyfriend. You both can go to hell." "I get why you're mad," she said, trying to keep her voice level. "You've made that clear 100 times. But did you really have to drag Trevor into this? He's a good guy. Having this on his record could ruin his career." "Tough," I said flatly. "He should have thought of that before screwing around with a coworker. He's just as much of a dirtbag as you are, and he deserves whatever comes his way. Oh, and don't even think about bringing your friends to the house anymore. You're not welcome here either. The restraining order makes that pretty damn clear. And just so we're clear, I've changed the locks. No more surprise visits from your little girlfriends. You're crazy. It wasn't like that at all, she yelled. Most men would have loved the chance to be in bed with 2 women. But not you. I guess 2 eager women were just too much for a wimp like you. I laughed bitterly. Speaking of Kristen, she married? If she is, I'd love to let her husband know exactly what kind of woman he's tied to. Screw you, she snapped. Screwed? Not anymore, I said with a chuckle. By the way, your clothes are on the driveway. You might want to grab them before it starts raining. If you need anything else, talk to my lawyer. You better not, she started, but I hung up before she could finish. That night, Diana came by to pick up her things. I watched from the window as she pulled up with her friend Tina. She shouted a few choice words, threw up her middle finger, and sped off. I just laughed. With her gone, I felt a massive weight lift off my shoulders. Her cheating wasn't my problem anymore. A few days later, the kids started calling. Haley was pissed. She knew all about her mother's affair and didn't approve, but she still asked if I could ever forgive her. I simply said, no. Your mother isn't worth it. Tyler was more understanding. He knew his mom had screwed up and didn't blame me for kicking her out, which I appreciated. I reassured both of them that I still loved them and would always be there for them. Thankfully, we maintained a good relationship despite everything. The lawsuit against the school board didn't go anywhere. Turns out, Diana had been telling the truth. She and Trevor never hooked up on school property. They always met at his apartment, or somewhere else, but never at the school. We couldn't find a single person who even knew about their affair, meaning they'd been more discreet than I expected. But a lack of proof didn't save Trevor's job. He was let go with a formal reprimand and soon left town to escape the gossip. Diana got fired too. She was bitter as hell about it, and called me a few times, screaming that her job troubles were all my fault. She tried applying to another school, but they caught wind of the affair and wouldn't hire her. Haley later told me Diana ended up working as a receptionist at a real estate office in the next town over. The divorce took a while to finalize. We had to sell the house since neither of us could afford it alone. I might have been able to swing it, but it was too big for just me anyway. When Diana moved out, she only took a few things, so I put most of the furniture in storage and got myself a 2-bedroom apartment closer to work. Now you might be wondering, why did I wait so long to divorce her? Simple. During those months we were still living together, I quietly drained our joint accounts. Diana never noticed. She was too wrapped up in her affair to pay attention. After the divorce, I didn't rush into dating. I was cautious around women, and with the kids' school expenses and Diana's alimony, money was tight. I hadn't hidden much from Diana's lawyer, but after the split, I lived frugally and slowly rebuilt my finances. I threw myself into work, and now, I'm on the verge of a promotion. As for relationships, I'm still hesitant about anything long-term. I wasn't in a hurry to jump back into dating, though I met a few nice women through well-meaning friends. I don't know where things will go, but even without a serious relationship, I enjoy meeting new people and hope to eventually find the right person. One Friday night, I was out with a coworker named Kimberly. She was in her late 30s, divorced for a few years, and an all-around great woman, sweet, fun, and attractive. It was our third date, and we were having dinner across town at a nice restaurant. As we enjoyed our coffee and dessert, I noticed an older woman at a nearby table. She was painfully thin, with short blonde hair, sitting with a much older, frail-looking man, probably in his 70s, with barely any gray hair left. At first, I didn't think much of it. But after a second glance, my stomach dropped. It was Diana. I leaned in and quietly mentioned it to Kimberly. She looked over, then back at me, eyes wide. "That's your ex-wife?" she asked, clearly amused. "She looks more like your mother than your ex." I explained that Diana was 4 years older than me, but yeah, she must have had a rough time since our split. I couldn't help but notice how thin she'd gotten, almost too skinny. "Wow," Kimberly chuckled. "She looks old enough to be your mother." And that guy? He looks like her dad. I can't believe she was your wife. I forced a small laugh, pretending I wasn't bothered, but deep down, I was. Diana wore a sleeveless dress, and her arms were practically just skin draped over bone. The wrinkles on her face had deepened since we were together, making her look far older than she should. I didn't say anything to Kimberly, but it was obvious. Diana didn't look healthy. I could only hope she was taking care of herself. We didn't bring her up again. Instead, we finished our meal, paid the bill, and got ready to leave. Kimberly went to the bathroom while I waited near the entrance. That's when I felt a tap on my shoulder. "Hello, Mike," said a familiar voice. I turned, and for a split second, I didn't recognize her. "Hi, Diana," I replied, forcing a neutral tone. Diana had aged badly. I wanted to say something polite, maybe tell her she looked well, but I couldn't bring myself to lie. Instead, I settled for, "It's nice to see you. How are you?" "Oh, not too bad," she said, but the words lacked conviction. Her once bright blue eyes had lost their shine, and her face looked even thinner up close. The sickly pallor in her cheeks worried me. "I talk to Haley and Tyler from time to time," I said, searching for something to fill the silence. "They're doing well in school." "I'm glad to hear that," she murmured. "Haley visits now and then, but Tyler, not as much," I added. We stood there awkwardly, either of us sure what to say next. "Well, Diana, I don't want to keep you from your date," I said, hoping to move things along. "He's not my date." "Not really," she said vaguely, avoiding my gaze. "Oh," I replied, then casually asked, "Are you still with Trevor?" A shadow flickered across her dull blue eyes. She hesitated, looking down for a moment before answering in a raspy voice. "No. Trevor and I aren't. I haven't seen him since a few months after our divorce." She lifted her gaze to mine and added softly, "But that's okay. I don't want to see him anyway." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, unsure how else to respond. "Yeah," she whispered, as another uncomfortable silence settled between us. I was about to end the conversation before Kimberly returned when Diana suddenly spoke again. "You know, Mike," she said, her voice quieter now. Then, unexpectedly, she reached out and grasped my arm with her frail fingers. Her grip, despite her appearance, was surprisingly firm. "You were right about everything," she said softly. "And I'm really sorry for how things turned out between us." Her voice was thick with regret. "I was?" I asked, caught off guard. "Yeah," she admitted, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Trevor wasn't worth it. I see that now." She hesitated for a moment, then asked softly, "Are you married?" I saw her glance toward Kimberly. "She's really pretty." "No, I'm not married," I replied with a small chuckle. "Once bitten, twice shy, you know." Diana didn't laugh. She just looked at me with sad, weary eyes. "Yeah, I get it," she murmured. Then, almost as if she were speaking more to herself than to me, she added, "You were always the one for me. I knew it back then, but I was too stupid to appreciate it." I shifted uncomfortably. "I don't know what to say," I admitted. She took a deep breath, then reached into her pocket and slipped a small piece of paper into my hand. "Listen, Mike, if you ever want to talk," she said, watching me closely for a reaction. I didn't reject it, and for the briefest moment, her eyes lit up, just like they used to, back when I had loved her. "I'd really like to hear from you," she continued. "I know we can never be together again, and I know that's my fault. But I just hope you're happy now. I know you weren't happy with me." She glanced over at Kimberly. "Your date is beautiful. I hope she knows how lucky she is to have you." Without waiting for a response, Diana turned and shuffled back to her table. She leaned in and said something to the older man sitting with her, who gave me a curious glance before turning his attention back to her. Just then, Kimberly returned from the restroom, smiling. "Ready to go, Mike?" "Sure am," I said, slipping my arm around hers. As we passed by the trash can near the door, I casually tossed the scrap of paper Diana had given me into it. That was the last time I ever saw her. Later, I heard from the kids that she was living with an older man a few towns away, probably the same guy from the restaurant. They told me her health wasn't great. She had developed diabetes. But at least the man she was with had enough money to take care of her. As for Kimberly and me, we never ended up getting married, but I'm still doing well. I've built a solid life as an accountant, and I see my kids as often as I can. Their mother, though? I don't see her at all. I guess, deep down, a part of me still feels something for Diana. But after everything she put me through, I could never go back to that life. And honestly, I'm okay with that.